Richard Johnson, the County Administrator for Hennepin County. And what I see is community engagement is becoming a bigger and bigger part of how we do our business. I think for a long time we've kind of approached issues from the point of view of being, we're the professionals, we'll tell you what the answer is and then we go do it. And we see that that's not an effective way to operate anymore. So now we're moving to community engagement. Sometimes we do it well, sometimes we do it badly. We need to learn how to do it better.
I consider one of my failures as a county commissioner, and I have been one for a while, that we really haven't moved very far on this community engagement and working with communities and using the assets that communities have to do some of the things that we do. It's still pretty much a service model. I don't think that works particularly well, and I think we need to figure out how we can evolve, and I think that's what this conversation is about. So I'm very excited.
Well, I would agree with that. I think also we find ourselves dealing with problems and issues, and then we go to the community and try to engage them. You know, in Jay Clark's example, I think he's out in the community, he sees something, and the community generates the ideas. Many times that's not where we are. We are trying to respond to some issue that's come up, some problem that's come up, and I think Peter's right, is if we've developed some relationships that are already there, that gives us some ability to talk about that in a different way than if we just said, here's our problem, here's what we think the solution is, are you okay with that?
Right, I think it's also the times we're in. I mean, I think that we're in a period where a lot of individuals and particularly communities are really empowered by information, and I think we're in this time where there's a lot of suspicion of professionals, there's a lot of suspicion of government, there's a lot of suspicion of universities. And I actually think that communities are a kind of entity, a sort of a scale where
it's a cost-saving measure.
This is right. That there's an opportunity for creativity among people at a community level that often can't occur at other kind of institutional scales. And so I think that this notion of empowerment from below, which is increasingly characteristic of our times, it makes communities now, I think, a much more powerful and effective voice and entity in our world.
The challenge is, and it's really kind of being overcome by the instant information age, is no longer the usual cast of characters showing up at events. You know, that when I say characters, I say that in a nice way because they're engaged, but there's a whole bunch of other people out there beyond the usual people that come. And I think, you know, through tweeting and Facebook and all these other social media outlets, it really helps get the message out there. And the county can have a lot of times we can take things for granted, and we'll roll our steam engine into a neighborhood and say, well, geez, we've got this bell and this whistle, and this is really great, you gotta love it. Well, they may not like it that much, and so it's really kind of an important thing to engage in there, but to get everybody, as many people as you can, to really kind of tune in and buy in is an important thing.
Can I just add, though, that we're whispering in one ear, okay, get out in the community, then the other ear, we have the tyranny of evaluation. Okay, and that's what drives a lot of the activities of highly skilled professionals, well-meaning individuals, and there's evaluation from the United Way, there's evaluation from the county board, there's evaluation all over the place, and that is a conflict, I would argue, in many respects, with actually doing the kind of engagement that we're talking about.
The thing I'd like to just building on what both Peter and Heidi just said is that to me, one of the real benefits of working in the community is it forces an interdisciplinarity that our organizations, both the county and the university, have such a hard time overcoming. We're so siloed, and when you're in the community, you realize that, as Heidi said, these issues are all related. And I'm co-chair with Ed Gatz, and several members in the audience here are part of a university metropolitan consortium, which brings together a wide range of disciplines around the table, and I think that consortium is transformative in the fact that it gets lots of different disciplines concerned about metropolitan issues talking to each other, and I think that's one of the real advantages of community engagement.
Thanks.
I think when I think about what's important is people are already engaged, they are paying taxes, so they, at a very base level, they are already involved and engaged in what we're doing and they care, and I think rather than thinking about it as we have to go out and do it and they're waiting for that to happen and for a vehicle. And so I think it's really ripe with opportunity and not such a negative as people wanting to really help and be participating and co-creating with us.
But you all, it surprises me when I asked about when is engagement important. I don't know, maybe I thought I was going to hear specific things, but you all touched on the issue of early, now, relationships. It's not when there's a crisis, when there's a tornado in North Minneapolis, or when there's a transportation problem. It's now so that you have an interconnected group. So my follow-up question to you, again, as significant leaders of institutions or of communities, is how nimble do you think these institutions, our institutions or our organizations are at doing that early relationship development work?
Probably not so nimble. I mean, I think Peter said it right. You know, politicians are forced to go out there every 2 or 4 years and really truly engage and dig in with community issues and community input. But you know, I feel that the county tries, and you know, we're really where the rubber meets the road. I would think it'd be more difficult for the university. I think UROC has been a huge input, and that's right in the area that I represent. And the community accepts UROC, and they really kind of were very like, whoa, what are they doing here? Big time. What are they doing here? But you stayed and you're there, and that's important. But I would think it's much more difficult for you.
A lot of this is an add-on in a time of budgetary constraints.
This being community engagement is an add-on?
Or even creating the new ways of doing things. You know, we can't do the old way. That was one of the admonitions, because it won't evolve into what you want it to be. So
that shows the interest on the part of the community as well as interest on the part of the university to have that relationship work. So there's been a lot of work by people who've been doing a lot longer than I have as the current executive director, who really deserve a lot of applause for continuing to make sure that happened. We are not nimble. My hope is, though, that we have a university president in his address who just said we need to stop being risk averse. And that's a lot about what being nimble is being risk averse.
The structure at the university makes it hard to be nimble with the semester system. One reason I've put most of our outreach activities outside of the departments is that they don't, problems don't occur on the semester schedule. And they don't get solved in 15 weeks.
But a lot of what we were hearing this morning, what Jay was talking about, was being a really good listener. And Hennepin County has employees all over the county who are in a position to listen and observe. So it wouldn't necessarily be a new resource challenge to empower employees to gather that data and have a mechanism in the county for absorbing that information. And I have a question for Heidi with respect to this is, because I'm trying to work with scientists on their engagement, and sometimes they do this thinking that they don't have to change themselves. And so I'm wondering to what extent UROC's position in the community isn't so much about projecting the you as about gathering information and figuring out how to change the you through its participation in the community. These seem to me to be related questions.
Well, I agree with that. But people need the room to do that, and I think, that we need to create a culture. More importantly, a culture where that's an integral part of the job description.
I see vigorous nodding over here too, Heidi and then Tom.
Yes, I think the culture shift is part of the answer to the resource question. The mission of UROC is to link the university in vital partnership with communities to resolve large urban issues. The second part of our mission is to transform the way the university works with communities in order to accomplish that. So that's absolutely, and it's not just UROC. I mean, we leverage what the university has. That's the first place we go as well, because why would we be redundant? We work with Cura, we work with children, youth, and families, we work with, okay, you should never start mentioning because then you forget people, right? But we work with the organizations that exist, including departments and faculty who are ahead of the game on that. I had somebody from CLA come up to me and say, gee, is CLA working at UROC? And I'm like, no, but we want you there. And they are. There are people in the community from CLA working in the community. So no, part of our mission is to really transform the way that we work with community.
Let's go back to this comment that just stabs at those of us who teach program evaluation. I got to say, Peter, no, I'm kidding. The tyranny of evaluation.
And I was just itching to come respond to this tyranny of evaluation comment, because I think evaluation is an opportunity. There's a particular approach called participatory evaluation. We actually have one of the experts, Gina King, here, who can probably should be here more than I should be here in this seat. But evaluation isn't just something you have to do for accountability purposes or to get money. I think it's really an opportunity to involve your constituents, your people, your participants in figuring out what the outcome needs to be and how we're going to get there.
If I can summarize my thinking about program evaluation at the moment, there really is a tension between what I call the accountability approach, and yes, you can put the word tyranny with that, absolutely, because we have these top-down, outside, oftentimes research-like, constraining. I won't say evil, but if you're participating in a study where they're doing it to you, it can feel that way, certainly. There are many approaches under that heading. But the other approach to evaluation that has been around since the progressive era, right? If you think about it, it's been around a very long time. And that is an inclusive approach, an engaging approach that is about improvement and helping people to collect data and information that will help them to do better, to solve problems, to think together. And that is the practice that I engage in, participatory evaluation.
But one of the things that actually we talked about at our table a little bit was, I think so often we approach this whole issue of community engagement as it's an obligation, something we got to do, and so we're going to do a couple of sessions and get it over with, so we got our obligation fulfilled, So I think, and when we approach it as an opportunity, as a situation where maybe there might be some really interesting and valuable discoveries, then it takes on a whole new life.
I think one of my highlights, I think primarily when it comes to county and community engagement, comes from the passion that I have, and I think each one of us can relate to it in the sense that if you look at a community in which you grew up in, and I grew up in North Minneapolis, and so I think oftentimes executive management probably cringes sometimes if something happens in North Minneapolis and they look, where's Paulette? Oh my God, how's she going to respond to this? And I do have some heartstrings that are concrete to North Minneapolis, but then I also have, some natural born relationships with people that I've grown up with. And some of those have gone on to, professionals, relationships that I've been able to create because I have the natural hands-on opportunity. That being said, I think that, there was 1,000 things ringing in my head when everybody was talking. It's like, okay, don't each one of us see clients every day? And if we do, it might be helpful to us if we think differently about how we see clients. Because they also, just because they're receiving services does not mean that they can't be a resource to you too. And I think sometimes what we often do is we got our work, we know exactly what we need to do, we do exactly what we have to do with them, and then bye-bye, see you later.
And so I think that particularly we're in a phase where I'm happy to support community engagement. There's a lot we can do. I'm excited about it. But everybody in the library department does community engagement, and that's the conversation that we're having, is everybody does it. It happens in different ways. And it's critical because back to that trust and relationship, which is a lot of the conversation at my table earlier, the frontline people, the people closest to our clients, are the people that we have to rely on for a lot of that trust.
Are there any times when we have to be clear about the boundaries, where the role of an engaged citizen begins and ends, and where the role of an elected official begins and ends, and where the role of a licensed social worker, for example, or sanitation worker, whatever it may be, begins and ends? And is that ever an issue as we think about this work? And no is a perfectly fine answer. It might be that I'm being too rigid in that question, but is it ever a challenge?
It's always a challenge, because I think oftentimes from the perspective of things that I've been engaged in, people look at us as a power broker. Hennepin County have a lot of money, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I got this great idea. You guys got some money? And oftentimes the answer to that is no.
Thank you. Thanks to all of our discussants up here and those who have taken a seat back in the audience. I think we had a provocative conversation, and in the best interests of engaged dialogue, I hope that you'll all take the next hour or so over lunch to talk with people you know and talk with people you don't know about some of the ideas that we grappled with here today. Kathy.